Hi, my name's Chris, and today I'm going to talk about using two languages in a single e-learning course. What we're going to do is we're going to allow the user to select their language at the beginning of the course and have their selection persist through the end of the e-learning course. As you can see, I've already got a project open. I have a blank slide at the beginning, and then I have a couple of content slides. The first one has the image added, the buttons are on it, but there's no text. The second one has the image, has the text. The text is in English. There's also the text in the alternate language, which in this course is going to be Klingon, thanks to Bing Translate. And then after this slide, I have a couple of question slides. The first one, as you can see, hasn't been built other than I've set up the template, but the second one is finished. So I'm going to show you how to use two languages in this short course. So back to this first slide. It's blank. I'm going to leave it blank. A Captivate project loads an awful lot of stuff when it first opens. And I've learned that by leaving this first slide blank, you can eliminate some of the risk for errors. So we're going to leave that blank. There is an action set to it. It's an action that takes place on entry. I've called it Course Enter. And this action is just go to next slide. That's all it does. This slide loads. User never sees it. The course will start on slide 2. And the user will never know the difference. Slide 2 is currently a content slide, but we need to add the buttons that will allow the user to select their preferred language. Obviously, we don't want to do that on this slide. We need to do it before this slide. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a slide between 1 and 2. So I'm going to click on 1, and then I'm going to right click and go down and pick slides, new slide from, and just a blank one, just like the first one. And then I'm going to add a couple of smart shapes. I go up to shapes, click, pick the rounded rectangle, which I think looks great for buttons. Come down here, and somewhere on this third of the screen, draw your button. Once it shows up, double click in it. Call this one English. I want to make that text a little bit bigger. It's awful small in that big button. So I'm going to select it all, and then I'm going to come over here and change it to about 36. I'm also going to make it bold. That looks pretty good. And now I want to change the color of this button. I want it to really pop and stand out from this dark background. So again, over here I want to pick fill, and I want this orange color. As you can see, it's not part of the palette up here. I got it by clicking over here and just grabbing, actually let's get this orange color, that. So now we've got a nice bright orange and the button really stands out. And then I'm going to click over here on the right, use as a button, and I'm going to name this English button. Then I'm going to copy it and paste, drag it over here somewhere. We'll use those guidelines to kind of line it up. Double click in here, and I'm just going to change the caption on it, make it Klingon. And then we've got one more thing we need to do on this slide. We need to put an action on these buttons, and we're going to use a shared action, and this is how we're going to build it. We're going to go up to project, click on advanced actions, and we need to create a variable before we build the action. And I'm going to click right here. You can get to it from clicking on the project drop down. There's a variable option, but since we need to build an advanced action, I'm going to open the advanced action up and then click variables. and I'm going to click Add New. I'm going to call my variable Language, N-G-U-A-G-E. I want to set a value of 0. So that's the initial value, and I'm going to put a description down here. I don't always do this, but for something where I need to keep track of what a variable means, I come back later on, I'll do this. So when it's just 0 equals English, 1 equals Klingon. I'm going to save that. Close this. And then we're going to build our shared action. And because it's a shared action, I'm not going to put a name up here, and I'm not going to name this tab because I'm not saving this as an advanced action. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to double click right here. I'm going to say assign, and then we're going to pick our variable, language, literal, and then 0. And then down here, go to next slide. And I'm going to save as a shared action. And I'm going to call this shared action, language, select. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to check this box next to the 0. And then I'm going to call this variable value. That will let me set what variable or what value the variables change to when I click a button. So we're going to save that. Now I want to apply that to both buttons. We'll start with English. So click on English, we'll click on Actions, and then where it says on success, go to the next slide. I want to change that to execute shared actions. I'm going to uncheck infinite attempts. Then I'm going to check on, well, normally you would select your action. There's only one shared action, so it automatically populates. And then I'm going to click on the parameters button, and you'll notice the only thing I can set is the variable value. We're doing the English button. English is 0. Hit return, save. Klingon, we're going to do the same thing. On success, execute shared action. That's the only thing that shows up because it's the only option there is. It's the only shared action. We'll click the parameters button, and this time we're going to set it to 1. And then we're going to go to the next slide, and we'll start putting in some content. So I've got a Word document that I've got the English and Klingon both in. This is the passage for this box in English. So I'm going to double click here. I'm just going to copy and paste this in. I do not want to copy the text formatting. We'll do that. So there's that language. I'm going to select all the text there, and I'm going to come over to color, and I'm going to make sure that's black, not dark gray. I want it black. And then I'm going to come up here, and I'm going to name this text caption, and I'm just going to call this page 1, page underscore 1. Again, very important that you name your stuff. That way when you're putting the values in for your action, you'll know what you need to pick. Alright, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click State View, and I want to add a state to this. So I'm going to click the plus sign. The new state is Klingon. Click OK, and then I'm going to go back to Word, and I'm going to grab this same passage in Klingon. I'm going to make sure that the Klingon's got the orange outline around it. I'm going to select all the text, and then I'm going to paste the new text in. I'm going to check Don't Ask Me That Again and say no. Alright, and then we're going to exit the state. Now we need to build an action for this slide that will show either English or Klingon when the learner enters the slide based on their preference. So what we're going to do, I'm going to click off the slide just out here in the dark gray, and then I'm going to go to Project, Advanced Actions, and again we're building a shared action, so I'm not going to name this, I'm not going to put anything in this tab, but I am going to click Conditional tab, and it's going to be if all conditions are true, and we want a variable, and the variable we want is language. The select comparison operator is going to be is equal to, so if language is equal to literal 0, in other words, if the learner clicked the English button, this is what we're going to do. We're going to change the state of the page 1 text to normal. If the learner selected anything other than English, which in this case is Klingon, there's only one other option, we'll go to the Else tab and we'll say change state of page 1 to Klingon. So if the learner selected English, change state to normal. If they didn't select English, change state to Klingon. Obviously this doesn't work if you have more than 2 languages. But we're going to save this as a shared action, and I'm going to leave these 2 unchecked, and then I'm going to fill these out. This is going to be the text to translate. This is going to be normal. This is going to be Klingon. And we're going to name this one, we're going to call this language underscore selection. Now that's too close to the other one. So let's call this one slide entry. So in addition to the names of your variables and your text boxes and images and that sort of thing being unique, you want the names of your actions and your shared actions to be unique too. You don't want to be guessing what they do, and you don't want them to be easily confused with another action. So now that we've built our action, we're going to close this, and then we're going to come over here. Notice there's nothing selected on the slide. We're going to come over to Actions, and we're going to go to On Enter, and it's going to be Execute Shared Action. And remember, language select is the action we use for the buttons on slide 2. We want slide entry. We're going to click the parameters button. So our text is page 1, normal, Klingon, and we're going to save. On page 2, we're going to do the same thing. Execute shared action. On page 2, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to execute shared action. We're going to pick slide entry, parameters, text to translate as page 2, and normal and Klingon. And then we're going to save that. And now let's step down to our question slides. And here's where it gets a little bit tricky. This is a default Captivate question slide. And there's not a whole lot of options here. I can't make multiple states for the answer boxes. There's no option for it. So what we've been doing won't work with these answer boxes. It also won't work with the question box. This is how I get around that. I'm going to click text and text caption. Of course, it's going to open up right in the middle of the screen. I'm going to grab it and I'm going to drag it over here where I can see what I'm doing. And then I'm going to resize this text box. I'm going to click options. And I'm going to go with a width of 415 and a height of 120. Notice I did uncheck constrain proportions. And then I'm going to left align this. And I'm going to go over here, and these are the three answers I've got. Mars with a S. So I'm going to put that text in here. That's the English. And I'm going to call this one, again, name in the text box, I'm going to call it Q1A. Well, underscore A, not plus sign A. And then I'm going to make a state for it. Notice I right clicked on it. I'm going to pick add state. Call the state Klingon. And then I'm going to paste the Klingon in just like we did with that caption on the previous, or on the first slide. Then I'm going to exit state view. And I'm going to go over here and I'm going to double click in this answer box. I'm going to select, type the answer here. I'm going to delete it. And then I'm going to grab this box and I'm going to drag it up here, move it over a little bit. I'm going to use the green line as a guide. And now you see I've dropped it and now I can't select it again. But if I need to get it and move it, which looks like maybe it needs to go down a little bit, I can grab it by using the timeline. So I'm going to click on Window, Timeline, and then here it is, Q1_A. I'm just going to click that and now it's selected. But notice you still can't click on it. If you click over there, it grabs the answer box because the answer box is on top. So Q1A, and then I'm going to go to the options and I want to call Y160. Remember, Y is up and down. That looks pretty good. And we're going to do that for all three answer boxes. So the text caption, I'm going to move it over here. We're going to uncheck constrain proportions and resize it. 415 and 120. And I'll show you why I'm making this text box so big for one word in just a minute. When we preview the project, you'll see. So I'm going to left align that. I'm going to name this. I'm going to call it Q1_B. And I'm going to paste in the English. It's Venus. I thought since we were using English and Klingon that we should have a space themed course. Okay, so I've got that in there. I want to click State View and I want to click New State, call it Klingon. And then I'm going to open Word again, or pull Word back up, and I'm going to grab the Klingon for that. Paste that in there. We're going to exit the state. And then I'm going to go to answer box B, and I'm going to delete that. Okay, so we're going to grab this and we're going to drag it over. Again, we're going to use those little green lines to line everything up. Looks pretty good. Okay, so we built our 3 answer boxes, and it's time to build. And what we're going to do here is, so I'm going to close the timeline, create a text caption. Let's see, click on window, click timeline, and I'm going to scroll down just a little bit. Remember I said you can't put the question, size it, on here. So we're going to delete this. Delete the text, not the box. I'm going to leave that box there. And then I'm going to create the text caption. Same way we did for the answers. I'm going to call this one question 1. I'm going to resize it. Seems like that's a good size. And then I'm going to get my question. Paste it in there. And we're going to create a state. And then we will paste the Klingon in there. Okay, so we built our 3 answer boxes, and we're just going to drag it up into the center of this box. Okay, now we need to build our actions for this question. So we're going to click on Project, Advanced Actions, and then we're going to build a shared action, and it's going to be similar to what we did for our content slides. So it's going to be a conditional tab, and it's going to be if all conditions are true. We want the variable language, so if language is equal to literal 0, then we're going to show everything in English. So it's going to be change state of question 1 to normal, change state of Q1A to normal, change state of Q1B to normal, and then change state of Q1C to normal. So that's everything on this slide. And then we're going to click else. It's going to be change state of question 1 to Klingon, change state of question of Q1A to Klingon, and then we're going to save as a shared action. And we're going to call this one question underscore enter. So this is going to be question text. This is going to be normal. This is answer A. Remember, you want it to be descriptive. You don't want to have to guess what you need to put in these boxes when you're assigning the parameters or when you're setting up the parameters. and then Klingon. I'm just going to copy and paste this. It's Control C on Windows, Control V to paste. Enter, and then we're going to save this. So now we're going to go over here. I've clicked off of everything, so nothing on the slide selected, and I'm going to pick actions and then on enter, and it's going to be execute shared action, and we want the one we just made, question enter. Our parameter, question text, question 1, normal, Q1A, normal, Q1B, normal, Q1C, normal, and then of course at the end is just Klingon, Klingon, Klingon. Then we're going to save that. Before we go do the action on the next slide, there's a couple other things we need to do. We need to put a submit button on here. Now, when I was building this out in the master slide view, I just grabbed the submit button and drug it off the bottom of the slide because I wasn't sure where I wanted to put it on here. I think we'll put it at the top, so I'm going to grab it, I'm going to move it back up here. Now normally I would do some things with the submit button to make it look like it fit better, maybe make this orange like the next and the back buttons are. Well, let's go ahead and do that. Let's make it orange. We're going to leave it called submit though. I'm going to add a drop shadow to it to the outside, so even though it's not the same size or shape as my back and next buttons, it's the same color. So the submit button's up there, and then I'm going to go to the quiz tab, and I need to tell the submit button what to do when it's clicked. And you do that from the quiz tab, and you do it down here on the actions, on success and last attempt. On success, I want it to go to the next slide. Go to next slide. In this case, I don't want a failure message, so none. There's only one attempt. So on the last attempt, I want it to also go to the next slide. So regardless whether they get it right or wrong, they're going to go to the next slide. The other thing I need to do that I haven't done, should have been one of the first things I did, is I need to set the correct answer. The correct answer is not Mars. It's Earth, so I'm just going to click on that radio button. And then I'm going to go down here to slide 2, but before I do that, or to question slide 2, I want to look at the location of the submit button. And do that by picking that and options, and it's 1084 and 36. So let's go over here, let's go ahead and do that first. Select the submit button, the options, 1084 and 46. Put that up there. Now, if I'd done this on the master slide, it would have went to the right place on both slides without us doing anything. Let's make it orange, and let's add that drop shadow. And like I said, this is already built out. So all we've got to do is put our actions on the slide. So we're going to click on enter, and then it's execute shared action. Remember, it's question enter. Remember, question text. So my question text is question 2. Alright, so we've got our question text in there. We're going to go over to the quiz slide, or to the quiz tab, and we're going to do our on success and last attempt actions. They're going to be the same as they were on the last slide. It's going to be go to next slide. No failure message. Last attempt is going to be go to next slide. And we're pretty much done with the project. Okay, there's one more thing I want to do before I preview this project, and that is I want to make this slide look like the rest of these slides. I want to make the project look uniform. What I mean is I want to add this spacescape background to these slides. I left these slides white so you could see my work around building the answers over here and then dragging them in behind the answer boxes. So let's fix that background, and we're going to do that for the master slide. So make sure you've not got anything selected over here, and then click master slide view. And this is the one I want to apply the background to. This background is just an image. I'm going to click on it. I'm going to copy it, go down here, and I'm going to paste it on here. And it covered everything up except for the answer boxes and the question box. So what we're going to do, it's still selected, we're going to click on modify and then arrange and send to back. Now let's go see what it looks like. Our question slides look a lot better. Okay, so now we've built the project. Let's preview it, make sure everything works, and see what it looks like. So I'm going to click preview, and if you saw my videos before, you know I like to preview as HTML5 in browser. I like to look at the entire project to make sure I didn't break anything with any change I've made, or in this case I've built an entire project and I want to see the whole thing. So when it loads, the first thing you'll notice is that the user was brought straight to the page where they select their language. They didn't see that first blank slide at the beginning of the course. So I'm going to pick English, and it's going to go to the next slide, and the text is in English as it should be. We're going to click next. Text is in English here as it should be. Click next again. We'll get the first question, which is in English. Answer is Earth. We're going to submit. Sun, the answer is a star. We're going to submit. You'll see I scored a 20 points. My accuracy was 100%. I got them both right. Okay, let's look at it again, and this time let's pick Klingon. So I'm going to pick Klingon, and you'll notice it goes to the next slide, but this time my text is in Klingon. My buttons are still in English. If we wanted to, we could put states on those and make those Klingon as well. I'm going to click next. The next slide is in Klingon. Click next. Here's the question in Klingon with the answers in Klingon. Fortunately, even though I don't read Klingon, I know that the answer is C. And for this one, again, I don't read Klingon, but I know the answer is A. So I'm going to click submit. My accuracy is 100%. So that's one way you can build an e-learning course. One way you can use two languages in an e-learning course. In another video, I'll show you how to build an approach, one that allows where the user can dynamically change their language selection, select their language on each slide, on their change or their selection, and of course those changes will until they change it again, or until the course or those selections will persist until they change them. Happy captivating.